this episode, we talk about PlayStation. Sayonara Jim, PlayStation going home. 2023, the best year for gaming, or did it fade to black? Predictions for 2024. Will the year of the dragon breathe fire? Without further ado, let's talk tech. All right, guys. Welcome to another Haptic Feedback. Just wanted to ask, how's everybody doing? Al, let's just start with you.
Oh god, it's been a while. We've had the sort of Christmas period, I guess. We've had a bit of a break as well, so and weirdly it's been pretty good. So I've been dabbling on quite a few different things, but no, it's good to be back on the podcast and getting this going again. Jay, how about you?
Yeah, I've been really good. Had a nice Christmas break. I've deleted Destiny off my PlayStation. I've been working through my back catalogue. Yeah, so I feel enthused about video games again, and I'm looking forward to just playing some old classics and justifying all of the games I've been buying over the last few years and not playing. So yeah, just generally good. Yeah.
You never know. I mean, Sony might decide to delete Destiny as well for other reasons. But suppose we'll get to that. I mean, hey, by the way, did you guys get away for Christmas and New Year's, or were you
Just
very much in back
different part of the UK for me.
Yeah, I was family and friends. We tend to stay at home at Christmas. I quite enjoy that. Just play games with some of my family who like games and don't necessarily play throughout the year. So even my siblings like playing a bit of Smash Brothers and Mario Kart always seems to be a nice Christmas thing. So they all know I love games. So then they're willing to participate in that time of the year. So yeah, it's good.
Nice way to spend it. I've started to get into the habit of basically getting away at Christmas, New Year's. I mean, it's happened a couple of years now. Yeah, so we started to just basically get away because the weather's just bloody terrible. Yeah, so we kind of do Christmas with the family a little bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, generally, I've been well. Obviously came to the end of a very busy year, got some much needed rest. Yeah, and kind of feel a little bit recovered after the holiday and just trying to feeling a bit infused about this year and maybe kind of actually doing playing a few more games. Hopefully, I mean that's the idea, right?
Yeah, certainly been a year of some pretty banger releases. So, and this 2024 seems a little bit quiet in terms of the games that I'm looking forward to. I'm sure that will change when some of the announcements happen and all the kind of conferences. But yeah, I mean, how many killer games were out last year? It's quite a lot of exciting things to look forward to. Hopefully, I'll just pick some things up and some more deals throughout the year.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be presses and conferences, but not E3. I mean, that's pretty much dead now, isn't it? So, it's gone away. Okay, guys, I think with that said, let's get on to the next topic. All right, guys, I think for the next topic I want to speak about, it's really PlayStation. So, obviously a lot's happened with PlayStation over the last kind of few months, and what I've really done is basically summarized everything that's kind of happened, and I kind of just want to get into a few of the details because obviously I think last podcast we did talk quite a great deal about Microsoft and Xbox, yeah. But I just gonna let's get into the kind of like PlayStation kind of state of play really. So look, the first thing I want to talk about, I mean, like PlayStation's boss Jim Ryan is going to step down in March 2024. Been with the company for 30 years. He really kind of took over as CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment in February 2019, and effectively this is a guy that kind of joined that company just before the launch of the PlayStation a few months before in 1994. He's been there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So you might say Sayonara Jim. Thanks for everything. But I'm just wondering to myself, was it voluntary?
Oh,
Was it
100%. No
voluntary?
chance. He's got pushed out for sure. I mean,
You think so?
oh, I think so. I mean, my spidey sense is telling me, as I'm getting older now and have a bit more life experience, there's I think they're having some internal turmoil at PlayStation, and for a couple of things. I mean, when you're a dominant, when you're dominant in anything, you get complacent. So that's happening. I think they've,
That's
yeah,
definitely
that's
happening.
definitely happening. The fact that they've been so quiet and so quiet to the level that it's just smells off. The fact that we already know they've announced that they're spending, I don't know what the number is, 60-70% of their budget on live service, which is just kind of fallen off a cliff in terms of customers wanting that in the last 3 months. Um, the fact that they've not announcing that many big games coming out for next year that they hadn't already announced earlier, and yeah, it just feels, my gut is saying that he's definitely just been pushed, and I think they're going through a massive restructure, particularly also because Xbox have won the Activision Blizzard deal as well. They're probably, in fact, there's actually the emails that came out of part of, or leaked part of the court case, said they were actually um, they were more worried than people were thinking about Xbox. I mean, Xbox have got their own issues as well, but yeah, I just think this is definitely a push. Um, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I suspected because obviously we worked in big corporate organizations, and you can see the signs, but equally thought to myself, well, PlayStation 5 is selling extremely well. It's tracking PS4. It's certainly outselling the competition. But then again, they're thinking about the long game, aren't they, as well? And I do wonder about the kind of whole live service strategy. It felt like too many eggs in one basket, if you know what I mean. And yeah, I do wonder if it was if he was even tasked to stop that kind of Activision deal at all costs,
yeah,
and has pushed him over the edge.
yeah. There's all this a podcast by, I think, is it David Jaffe, who did the original God of
That's
Wars,
right.
and so
Yeah,
he,
got it.
yeah, so I've heard a couple of his things, and he seems to be quite a level-headed guy who's still plugged into some of the people at PlayStation. So my knowledge comes from that's a couple of his kind of videos, and he was saying basically he thinks he's been pushed as well, and that this live service push has just caused loads of chaos in terms of developers not wanting to do those type of games, messing up the release schedule, messing up the designs of some of their games, messing up some of their aspirations around the movie tie-ins and all that sort of stuff they were meant to be doing with Bungie and all sorts of just yeah, I think
I wonder.
yeah,
That's interesting. That's interesting that the live service strategy could have had been could have had such an impactful. It was like a bit of a disturbance in the force, right? When that happened.
yeah.
If they did disrupt the kind of plan to kind of become more of an entertainment company, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the allure of making big money in live service games is too big, and I think you need to start the train and reorganize around that. And once you've gone down that path, if the world is pivoting, it's really hard to pivot back out of it. It's kind of
Yeah,
like what Disney have done with this, going with the whole woke coach culture, and they've completely wrecked the company now. They've wrecked the company in terms of the quality of films coming out and the themes. The customers are having a backlash, so they bought Bob Iger back now, and they're saying that they don't have the same sort of artists and designers that they had for the old type of films. It'll take them 3 or 4 years to unwind it, to go back to on the path they were before, and I really feel that's going to play out with PlayStation. So that doesn't mean I don't think that PlayStation isn't going to do well over the next few years, and there still probably has some good games in the pipeline they probably haven't released. But I think at some point they're going to have a bit of turmoil coming up.
Yeah, I guess strategies in big projects and whatnot, they're really kind of 3 to 5 years, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we don't know how long this whole kind of live service strategy has been in play, but if it's had 3 to 5 years in order to disrupt other plans they've had, other irons in the fire, you imagine the blast radius has been quite big.
it must be huge. I mean, if they're
Yeah.
one of their biggest franchises, Last of Us, when the number two came up, pivoted the multiplayer a long time. They can't even get that right, and that already had a pretty good multiplayer component. At least theoretically, you could kind of you could envisage that kind of being something like a live service, and they couldn't get that right. Versus starting something completely new, then what chance have they got from starting new things and getting them right? I mean, how many companies we're seeing failure after failure and failure on live service games, aren't we? It's just been a car crash.
I think that
Even
I think the more traditional ones, yes. But I think things like it's the mobile games, the gacha games, which are pretty much live service games anyway. That stuff they're doing really well. The amount of money that's being spent on that stuff is insane.
Yeah,
That's a fair point, and I do. I mean, what's not talked about that often is that PlayStation's mobile division has had a reboot, and thinking about it, that should be and could be one of their most lucrative kind of ventures. But obviously, it's had a reboot. It's not happened. I mean, let's be honest. Microsoft bought Activision in King. That was a big factor. So I do wonder if that's another factor. You know what I mean? The mobile division hasn't done well at all. It's produced effectively nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's effectively produced
it's
nothing.
interesting because we work in corporates, right? And then you have, let's say, the old parts of these corporates, and then you have the more up and coming digital parts doing more stuff that's real customer focusing, building of products. It's completely different mindset, culture, and if you mix them together, it just doesn't work. And you know, I think the same applies for like the traditional games versus mobile games versus live service. They're all completely different cultures and ways of building games that have certain types of developers that need, and different customers. If you're traditionally being, a console game trying to play in the mobile space game and reinvent it just doesn't. I don't think it works. When Nintendo have tried it, Microsoft have meant to have tried it, but they're just basically just given.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Oh, you were going to say
Yeah, I
something.
think it seems to work. I think it's the other way around. I think it's the mobile games. You think of Genshin Impact and all these other ones. They started as mobile only, but then they went to PC client. They went to PlayStation. They went to Xbox as well. So you can actually play those games on there, and I think there's a significant number of people that actually play it, and you can play it across the same account. I think so. You can basically play on any system you want using the same account.
Well, developing a mobile game must be significantly different to developing either a PC or console game. Maybe the way the game the mechanics of the game must be reflective of the device, if you
Yeah,
know what I
it needs to
mean.
be able to handle it, and the UI and the layout and stuff like that is going to be fundamentally
Yeah.
different. But if you start with the least, as in the one with the least amount of capability on it, the mobile, then work from there. Everything else you can kind of scale up to it to an extent.
So this is probably going to sound quite cynical, but any of the popular mobile games are driven around being highly addictive in the way that they design their UIs and the gameplay loops. some people may find them actually fun. But I wouldn't. If you really looked at it, I wouldn't be surprised if most of them finding it fun. But they think it's fun, but they're actually addicted. Whereas
that's most games.
Whereas let's take Nintendo. They're far more on the fun scale, and PlayStation have been on the fun scale, and they're trying to do it, increase their revenue, but they're gonna put the more addictive bits into their games. I just don't like. It's not fun for gamers, really. Mobile, really. If you are someone who actually play, I'm filling in some gaps here, and I haven't got any proper research on this, or I haven't spoken to many people. But the people that play these mobile games, maybe they might find them fun at the start, but if I would guess that they probably don't find them fun. They are more addicted, and I just don't see
the ball and chain.
Yeah, and I just don't see it as a strategy that's successful for PlayStation, where they've built themselves, which has been fun. Nintendo purposely said we're not even going to actually faff around with the whole building loads of internet and online play into our games, and if we do, we're going to have it bare bones because we want to retain it as a toy and fun, and I think that's where I think PlayStation with this mobile piece and live service thing is they're going to fail because it's just too hard. That's why
Yeah, go on, you say it was too hard.
Yeah, I think it's too hard. I think Microsoft know that, and they just go, well, we'll just buy Activision Blizzard. They got King inside there. They've all got established games, and they'll just keep the money coming in, and that's all we care about, really.
Yeah, and I do wonder. I mean, let's just say hypothetically, Jim Ryan was pushed out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim Ryan is an excellent businessman. Because let's be honest, December last year, 2023, we had sold 50 million PlayStation 5 units. 50 million, so it's on track to sell over 100 million. I think it's going to do well from a hardware sales perspective. But Jim Ryan, as we know, isn't necessarily much of a creative, let's say.
He's probably not even a gamer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's also true. That's also potentially true. So you can imagine that Jim Ryan's decision process is based on numbers, dollars and pound signs.
Yeah.
He sees the whole live service live service domain, and he thinks we need a live service strategy. We need to kind of go more or less all in. Yeah, more or less 60% in my mind is of your overall budget for games development is what I thought it was, is more or less kind of all in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of put aside your heritage of being, you're not Nintendo. Nintendo are, like you say, about the fun, about the toys, they're about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sony are all about the adult, let's say experience, the narrative and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're putting that aside, you're investing in the live service strategy. Nothing's really come to light at the moment. You can't demonstrate any fruits of your labor. Plus, as you say, it's very difficult. And maybe what they really should have done is just said, we're going to go for a couple of titles, but we're going to buy in some expertise with companies that we can work with, like they've always done. Yeah, they could have really gone for that approach. But it's kind of wonder if Jim was pushed. I mean, one of the failings is that he kind of deviated a bit too far away from the way that company normally does things, if you know what I mean. They've lost their identity almost.
I mean,
yeah.
Go on, Jay.
Can I ask you guys, like, all this time we've been thinking, oh, PlayStation hasn't said anything and been very sheepish about what games are coming out because they don't need to, and it keeps them in that kind of power position. Do you think that's the case now, or do you think?
No.
Yeah. So you're basically agreeing with me. You're saying there's some incompetence going on and some chaos.
There is, but I think they're luckily whilst they may be incompetent, they're not as incompetent as their competition.
Yeah, that
What's- but they have less. They have more to lose, and they have to change less to get what they want. You know, in terms of the sales, right?
Yeah.
And they already have franchises that people care about.
Yeah.
So they don't have to develop those things or market those things.
So to a point, I think Nintendo's franchises can last multi-generations of console releases and still have stickiness. I don't think PlayStation's characters are as iconic as Nintendo. So if they had, you know, a couple of crap games on a particular franchise of theirs that is first party, I think they could just lose it quite quickly. That's my view. I just so they have if
I think PlayStation's characters are definitely not as iconic. No way.
yeah.
Because it's talking about Mario, Zelda, and the like. But PlayStation never do that anyway. They always end certain kind of franchises within a generation. Yeah, mostly. Yeah. And the thing is that with what they produce, there's always an end to the story, if you know what I mean. Whereas kind of Nintendo have got these characters, they're more perpetual.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think, and PlayStation have got a very different sort of DNA. Yeah, but they try to deviate away from it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe, you made a really good point around with their live service strategy. They should have picked one or two games and gone more fully into it. But I struggle actually thinking which games, which IP franchise they could have really gone with to make that work, because I think all of them have been quite story narrative driven. So unless they're constantly releasing stuff that is all about the story, it's going to be really difficult.
What I mean is they should have, instead of basically trying to refactor their existing studios to do live service, they should have left those guys well alone, because they are really set up for specific types of games.
Yeah.
But what they should have really thought on is getting studios like the people who do obviously Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, getting people like Warframe, the guys who do Warframe Digital Extremes, and just having, and they did the same thing with Bungie, and we'll talk about them later. But it's that sort of thing. And said, okay, guys, there is no, there's no other there's no other studios what we have doing this.
Yeah.
You're it. Or basically, we'll take on what you have, and over time, we'll leverage your expertise. Yeah, and I know they've set up some new studios for this. We've got I think Concord and this other game that the ex Ubisoft people like Jade Raymond were doing. But it's kind of that. It's just like 6 live service, 6 or well, it's not even 6. It's like, I mean, the number was like something like 10 to 12, right? That means a lot of your studios are effectively engaged in this. Yeah, and I kind of think, well, why? That's your MO has always been, we work with a studio for a time, and if they're the right fit, we acquire them. Yeah,
But they've done something slightly worse. Sorry, which is they announced it. We're going to have X number of live service games by this day, and then so that's how far gone they were in terms of restructuring.
Yeah, and they can only have been pressing their existing studios to do that.
Yeah.
To make those, I mean, thinking about it, to have those sorts of numbers with kind of like the types of games like that Sony produce anyway. They're like 3 to 5 year development cycles.
Yeah, maybe we're getting a load of them this year.
I don't know. I don't know. Doesn't feel like it. Well, I mean, look, let's not dwell too long on old Jim here, on crying Jim here. But I mean, look, to be honest, as a businessman, he certainly sold a lot of PS5s,
Yeah.
right? But whether he was whether he's leaving of his own accord or not, I don't know. But 30 years of service with the company, you got to respect that. He's been there from the very, very beginning. And maybe when it's all said and done, when the dust settles, he's kind of like earned his rest, perhaps. Maybe it is time to move on. But look, it was about talking about Sony, not necessarily Jim Ryan, right? And the next thing I want to get into is like, yeah, I mean, we talked about PlayStation and PS Plus and what their strategy was, and said like maybe they're going to go cross media, turn into an entertainment company. And there's been obviously there's signs of that. They got this Sony Pictures Core, and it allows you to buy or rent 2,000 movies, onto your console. And if you have the PS Plus, what is it? It's probably the premium service. You get 100 or so kind of movies as part ad-free movies. They've kind of like highlighted as part of that service. So I kind of think they're going down this route. Feels fragmented, however. Feels fragmented. Okay.
Again, I don't want to sound that negative, but if you take companies trying to create live service games, or Apple trying to become a Netflix, or even Netflix being one of the kind of the pioneers but struggling to create quality movies, or what's it called, the HBO Max. So HBO trying to have their own streaming service based on the existing catalogues they've been providing to cable channels, and trying to create new revenue sources that way. How many of these have been successful over time now? It's all kind of unraveling, isn't it? So
there's just too much out there, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and people.
There's too much choice.
That's it. I think consumers are overwhelmed, and there's almost not enough time. And we're probably struggling with that more than most other people because as we're getting older now. But some of us have children and stuff. But there's it needs to be bangers, and look, look at this image as well. Like this is going to be their best movies. There's some couple on here that are pretty good. I mean, Step Brothers I've seen about 100 times. That's pretty good. But yeah.
I mean, for people who don't know, we're actually looking at a slide, looking at some of the thumbnails for the Sony Pictures Core service. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And creating like even Nintendo, their Mario movie was good, but I think they always struggle to even become a media company like they aspire to. It's just all these things are just very, very hard. This saturation, too much choice across media types, reading books, podcasts, YouTube channels, sports, movies, video games. Like it's just too much to do and not enough time.
Yeah, but I think that's why they add it on as part of the sort of PlayStation Plus. It gets you into that ecosystem, ties you more into their stuff rather than going into, say, Amazon or someone else's, right? So they just want you to tie into their ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to do that? They're not. I mean, look at Apple. Apple been giving away Apple's what's their TV?
Apple TV.
Yeah. Free. You get free 3 or 6 months whenever you buy an Apple product.
You get that with PlayStation, actually. that's the thing. Funny enough, I know it's a difficult thing, isn't it? I mean, because like you say, right, it is you're fighting against time, and what's the reality? The reality is, if you've got a couple of these services, you think to yourself, I don't have time for anything else. Yeah. I don't have time to play games. I don't have time. So it's kind of, you kind of think to yourself, well, what's the point? You know, what's the point of adding more to the subscription service, gaming or otherwise, when I can't even leverage it?
I think it's the
You
same
know,
argument.
that's a fair
Yeah, I
point.
think it's the same argument I had before with the Microsoft one, right? So if you have it as a you share it as a family, that can actually be a huge amount of value. So not just an individual, but sharing it across a whole family that is multiple users using that ecosystem, and yeah, you get good value out of it.
But do the economies of scale work? Because like so you got to pay for all of this. That's right. Do the economies of scale work? Well, not getting too far into that, but I kind of like wanted to bring up that yes, we're seeing some signs that PlayStation slash Sony are getting into more of this. You know, we want to provide cross media. We want to be an entertainment company, and they're trying to unify the things. Is what I'm getting at. We kind of always talked about in the past, like what would make PlayStation Plus premium. Something like this might. Yeah. So they're kind of moving in that direction. Would it work?
Crunchyroll.
Another story.
Sorry, Crunchyroll. If they weave that in properly, that's something I think with this and some first party game. They could create an Uber subscription service if they wanted. I'm not saying they can't do that. So if they had this Crunchyroll, all first party titles come to their version of Game Pass. They put all their back catalogue in there. They could create an Uber service, but
I have doubts.
Yeah, they won't
Yeah.
they won't do that. Yeah.
I think they've got all the ingredients. I've always said they've got all the ingredients to do it, and it doesn't have to be the whole pie. It can be some of the pie. Are they going to do it? And number two, is it going to be really kind of let's say curated, harmonized? Is it going to be something that's fragmented all together that people can kind of understand it? If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing I question. But there was the early signs they're trying to move in that direction, and even with putting service aside, obviously they've actually got reasonable, let's say, content itself. Films and TV based on their gaming IP. And I've actually kind of introducing a new one. I mean, they've actually got Gravity Rush. I think that there was something around that in CES. So Gravity Rush it's a fairly, I think, a niche IP. First started life on the PS Vita. But even that has something, which I find quite astonishing, really. Let's move on from that. And what else did we hear from Sony? Well, they like their hardware. They love their hardware. They're a hardware company. So, I mean, I think for this year, we've seen the PlayStation Portal, bit of hardware to use, really. The remote play feature. Lots of headsets, Pulse Explorer earbuds, Pulse Elite headsets, an access controller. PS5 Slim is out. And it looks like a PS Pro is incoming in probably 2025. So they're kind of following that model. Yeah, it looks highly likely. So they're certainly not deviating away from being that hardware company.
I wonder how the sales of the VR2 is going.
I hear badly. I mean, but that's another thing. I mean, I obviously didn't talk about it in the, like, right now. But again, I don't know where VR as a domain and industry is actually going. It's not really about the PlayStation VR2. That's a really, as a VR headset, it's a really good headset. But where is it going? In general.
So I saw a video this week, which was a Sony presentation from CES, and it just jumbled everything together from their car car tech to PlayStation to some VR stuff, some AR stuff.
CES, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, but the
CES.
actual presentation it was like it was a
Yeah.
jumbled up mess of a
That's the
little
one.
bit of a mess, to be honest, where there was a headset in there they showed, which is basically taking the same tech as the VR stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to compete with, let's say, Apple Vision Pro and what Meta are doing with their own headset. So it wasn't just they didn't just invest in that tech just for PlayStation. It's much wider application.
Oh
Yeah,
no, I'm sure they did.
yeah,
I'm sure they didn't.
yeah.
I mean, I agree that PlayStation, actually not play, but Sony themselves are quite a jumbled mess. They should be a lot more together than they are.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But then they're not, and they're trying to get there. But yeah, I agree. I don't think anything that we see in some of these Sony products are just for the that segment. I mean the headsets actually share technology with some other kind of areas in Sony. So it's all of that sort of thing. But again, sometimes you don't always see this. What I would like to say should be some sort of cohesive strategy with what they're doing.
Yeah.
If things, where is it? But you got all the ingredients, but it's never put together. If you know what I mean, it's never organized the way you think it should be.
Have you seen in that presentation? That electric car was
I heard,
driven out
yeah,
with the PlayStation controller, right?
yeah,
Then they had and it looked shit, that car, by the way, as well. And they had all this tech inside the car which you would never use. It was way too much tech in a car you wish you would never use.
yeah. It sounds like it's just for kind of like show, right? It's just basically kind of a wow factor and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Because they're trying to make a splash in the
yeah,
market.
it's probably you're probably right. It's probably just like it'll never reach production, but the tech inside that they'll sprint it out into their own set of products. Maybe license it to some other EV companies, or they use some of the tech and the VR tech will go into the PlayStation, or maybe the other way around. Maybe they did the VR2 to test it and build the tech in PlayStation to then refine it, and then when I don't know when the metaverse does finally kick off this year. Let's see. And the Apple Vision Pro's out it's out next month, isn't it? So it's
Feels like it's gonna the whole metaverse thing's kind of not die a death, but obviously there was all this talk on it, and now it's kind of quieting down. Everybody's talking a bit more about AI, and it's all of that sort of thing, isn't it? So
yeah, but I think when let's say when some real use cases come, like for example, I'm sitting here and I could put a headset on, do a podcast, and have 4 or 5 virtual screens looking up with all the research with AI listening to my voice and bringing up things, and it supports the chat. Those things are actually probably quite useful. That if you had those,
that's Apple.
Apple will do it. I think they will do. Because
They've already got their kind of virtual kind of workspace thing with that AI headset.
yeah, they have. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it will happen. And Sony will be part of that, but this just coming
Well,
back to this PlayStation series of hardware that you're showing on the screen here. It's all a bit meh, isn't it? The
yeah,
headset's just same headset,
it is.
same headset, and that new headset, PlayStation headset, and those earbuds have got some proprietary nonsense in it, so you can't use it with anything else.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yep,
It's kind of like it's not Bluetooth, right? It's something else.
and
Yeah,
disability control is meant to be quite good.
yeah.
The PlayStation
That's good.
that's
That's definitely
that's meant to be good, yeah. The PlayStation Portal is just like when are you going to use it and what customer it is for.
Do you know what? Some people seem to love it.
They do, but not.
Uh,
But they that's because they'll get a free either or like a news reporter or something like that, and or they've got a free one. How many consumers are actually going to go and actually buy it? The ergonomics, the screen, the controller, the quality is there, not the use case. I don't know. If they
yeah, that's an interesting one.
yeah,
Yeah.
if they actually made it into People want that in an actual equivalent of a Switch, don't they? That's what they want.
Yeah,
And give
possibly.
me PS4 games. People are happy with that, not what they've come out with. And then the refresh
Yeah.
of the PS5 is just it's got.
It's a standard thing, isn't it? I mean, it happens every
Well,
generation.
they got
It's cheaper to make.
well, it's not just that. Have you seen some? It's got like some quirky metal stand in the middle.
Plastic.
Is it plastic
It's
even?
not even metal. Yeah, it's
It's
plastic legs. That's
plastic
what you kind of
leg.
like. It's quite cheap, effectively. But I think the interesting thing about that is the detachable kind of like drive. And they're sending a signal really that, you know what, next generation probably discless.
Okay, but is that cool from a hardware perspective? Just ditch it in the next iteration. Why you didn't like okay, what you're saying is right, but from a product perspective, who's going to buy a normal the standard one and go, oh, actually maybe I wanted a drive, and then I want to buy the drive and then spend more than it was to get the one with the drive in the first.
That's the whole point of it, I think. That is the
But
whole point of it.
that's the same as the PlayStation Portal. What is that customer base that's going to make that wrong decision? Therefore, you're catering the product.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't. It's something weird going on with the Portal and the new revised
Yeah.
PlayStation that doesn't make sense.
I think actually Sony do experiment quite a bit. They've always experimented, and I've heard the Portal. It's not available in big numbers. They actually sold out on it. Yeah. Um. So they're just trying their. If you ask me, they're trying their luck on the whole streaming thing. They're trying to do some research, get some numbers together, and the whole PlayStation Slim distance thing. They're testing the waters to say, okay, we're thinking that we might go digital like Microsoft. Yeah. So what happens if we produce this console that, yeah, you have the option of not having a disk drive and is detachable? What happens then? So that's what I think it is really. Um, but they do like their hardware. You know that's what I
But
would say.
how many? Okay, so it's just
Mm,
sorry, I'm sounding very cynical here, but like there's
mm,
5 products that we've just gone through there
mm.
on that. 4 of them are a miss, and they've all associated with a pretty popular product brand series, which is the PlayStation. I just think it signifies the previous topic of internal chaos and misalignment on a clear vision and strategy of moving forward. Did the PS4 have any of these hardware things that just
PS4 had more or less 3 of them. It didn't have the Portal, yeah, because obviously Sony were into kind of like more kind of standard sort of handhelds. Accessibility controllers obviously something new. It definitely had headsets. Like PS4, I've got one, and it definitely had I don't know, it had a slim, effectively. What I'm kind of trying to say here is that this is very much true to Sony PlayStation 4. Yeah, it's not much different. The Portal, it's a little bit different. Yeah, and it's not really the Portal that kind of like most people wanted, but it just kind of gives a clear idea on the direction they're going to go with Portals. They're not going to get back into the Portal market, that's for sure. Based off of this. Yeah. So I don't actually think this is out of the norm.
unless their PlayStation 6 is what the Switch is, and they just bring those two together.
Yeah. I kind of think that, I don't know. It kind of almost feels I don't know about a ship has sailed, right? But there's um there's so much more competition in that arena now because everybody seems to be making this kind of like portable PC, and it looks like they're gonna continue doing that. And Switch is extremely dominant. So it's a very dominant product, isn't it, in that space? And if not Switch, then kind of Steam, and then if not Steam, then kind of all these other portable kind of like PCs. But anyway, okay. and the next thing that came, I think, came out during the year was Bungie. So Bungie laid off 10% of their staff, and obviously hear more layoffs and cost cutting measures are on, incoming. Um, Destiny final shape, I think it's delayed until mid-year into June 2024, and not sure what that means for Marathon. But obviously Bungie's final Destiny 2 expansion is the final shape, but I'm kind of curious. I mean, like, what's Bungie's final shape? Because there's talk of really Sony taking a bit more direct control of them. Because I hear, and this is purely rumor, in order to stay independent, they were given specific targets, and they're not meeting them. And I think, Jay, I'm going to throw this over to you. I just want to hear, because obviously you're a long time Destiny kind of player. I mean, what do you think about what's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, without muddying the waters about the actual game product and speaking about the company, I think, because I've spent a lot of time listening to different people having different views on this, who was buried in the Destiny ecosystem or community over a number of years. I think they've overstretched themselves in terms of their ambition to be a multi-game studio, and they've been overconfident on their Destiny 2 product, on an aging game engine, and kept that community going on buying the game every year. Continuously lowered the bar on the quality of the product and the quantity of content, and then expanded the studio at the wrong time, and had such a high burn rate, which is the feedback that why Microsoft didn't want to buy them, that for Bungie initially approached Sony and Microsoft because they were already having financial issues.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And I think they're in a real mess. Whether the final shape is good or not, they have burnt their community so badly that even though the final shape was going to be a end of a saga, that people are going to bounce off, and they've lost that company credibility. They've also, from what I hear from people who are left, some of the people who were around from the Halo days, some of the music directors, some really influential designers, have treated them so badly. Plus, they've had to kind of get rid of all of the perks they've had around, these internal days off and extra bonuses and investing money in kind of like equality schemes and like all these things that kind of, and they've been selling that as part of their product as well. We're such a great company. They've apparently shaved all of that back. They've got a financial mess. They've got a cultural mess. They've clearly got a leadership problem that's been making the wrong decisions within the Destiny product. They've obviously got leadership problems because they've expanded too wide and far. I think that Sony will end up taking them over, and then disband out all the components of it and just into the studio ecosystem. I think Marathon is just effectively another live service game, and I think that the timing with the Bungie's exploitation of their existing community, mismanagement of their company, the pressure from Sony, just a general decline in live service, the difficulty with coming out with a new product anyway, full-size new franchise, is a cocktail for them that they are going to basically fail, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't sound doesn't sound too optimistic.
No,
I can't be honest
it's
on that
not.
kind
It's
of like.
not. And I've deleted Destiny off my console, and I will play the final shape if it's good. In a year's time, and I'll buy it on discount. I'm not going back for sure. I've been lied to so many times, and I'm sure people have been lied to by Blizzard and on Overwatch and Diablo, and that's all part of the thing. But I don't know. I'm burnt out on live service. I'm burnt out on Bungie, and I'm burnt out on false promises. And what I'm hearing about Bungie is they're in dire straits right now. There's no way Final Shape is going to bring big revenue. They're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, possibly not the revenue they'd want.
Yeah, there's no way.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because it just seemed to happen in. I mean, this all came out in a very short space of time, and before that happened, like you kind of thought to yourself, well, number one, within the kind of Sony pantheon, Bungie was in a very kind of strong position, and then generally speaking, you think, well, Bungie's in a very strong position, and then within 24 hours,
No,
that
they've not.
all just evaporated.
They haven't. They haven't. If we go back to the product they've been releasing for the last 3-4 years, it's continuously got worse and worse. More microtransactions, more convoluted story, um, um, loads of stale parts of the actual product, lack of innovation, lack of comms, the lack of fixing problems, the lack of just letting PvP die. These are no surprises.
Yeah, right.
It's been a build up, and it's blown up inside their company, with Sony seeing it and their staff leaving, exposing what's going on. It's nothing lasts forever. Everything goes through a cycle, and this cycle of
Of course, of
Bungie's
course.
done. I think they're done. I just
I think they've entered into a cycle themselves.
yeah, and
That's for sure.
even if Marathon is a really really good game, um, it's the timing of this live service thing with people just being burnt out of it it has to be even extra special to survive in this moment in time.
It's probably not out for years though.
No, so it was meant to come out at 2024. They've said
Oh,
2025. Yeah, it
really?
was 2024. It was one of Sony's one of their 3 or 2 live service games that were meant to be out this year.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, it's 20.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with these guys. I mean, on paper, it was a real coup for kind of Sony to get, but now it's starting to feel like, well, it's another kind of it's a poison chalice, if you know what I mean.
100%. But don't forget, this is them being attached to Sony, who've done the massive pivot on live service, and that's not going well.
Yeah.
Bungie had, as well as their promises, to had 3 expansions that then became 4 to get to the final shape. They were meant to. They always publicly said we're going to have movies, TV shows, comics. Nothing.
Mm,
Nothing. Where
interesting.
is it? Where is it?
Yeah. It's yeah, it looks quite
It
dire.
is, dude.
Yeah. Sounds
It
quite dire.
really is.
Yeah.
Like the like the. I can't. I mean, I've just. It's a bit of a joke, really. The last 4 years, their core playlist in their games, they've added no PvP maps. Their strikes, they've had 1 a year.
It's just not enough, is it? Like,
It really even yeah. Like I
and they've got a studio of 1,000. They had a studio of 1,200 or something. That's no small studio.
no. Didn't and there was
It's a
I think
massive studio.
is it NetEase that gave him 100 million? Apparently that game was being canned as well.
Well, yeah. Wonder if it had, if one of the reasons, if Jim Ryan was pushed I wonder if this is one of the reasons that pushed him over the edge.
Because
You could
yeah,
say.
what was it? I mean, I actually like it. I would like to go on a while with this, but the money that they were meant to get from Sony to have the liquidity to keep rolling on for years to build the great product, half of it or 2/3 were burnt on retention of existing staff
I
as
heard that.
part of. So
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, Sony, well, taking direct control, more likely to happen, I
I
think.
think they stuck a grenade to themselves that's going to blow up.
Yeah. I think talking of grenades, I mean, one thing we often talk about is that the lack of information coming from PlayStation, effectively the lack of any kind of meaningful showcases, right? So obviously, some Insomniac had a recent large leak. Lots of things were obviously, basically leaked. I'm not going to go into all of it because obviously there's financial data, personal data, but I'm kind of more focused on the games, yeah. And what I've said, what I've called this one is like, you know, PlayStation Showcase, Ratchet and Clank ripped apart, and it's a outright leak, but I mean, and a massive one, I might say, the biggest I've ever seen in effect in the games industry. And like as a consequence of that, we now know Wolverine is really a 2026 game. Yeah, and for the people listening to this, I've actually got a slide and I've got some of the leaked screenshots, on there. Yeah, so it's a Wolverine game outright, but they leaked concept art, gameplay footage, test footage, and I imagine you can actually play a PC build of it. That was leaked. There was a PowerPoint presentation, all sorts of things. Yeah. Moving on, we had Insomniac and PlayStation Studios internal information. But they really exposed the Insomniac's own roadmap, information about projects, budgets and revenue for the studio, and snippets of information around Gorilla um, and Blue Point and what they're working on. Okay, it's quite a lot, and I think with the slide I've got now, it's really about Steam sales for some of their PC products.
Shocking, the numbers were
Yeah,
low, weren't they?
yeah, I thought that would be much bigger, but like it's interesting to see where they go with that. But
There was some, not just on Steam, but even PlayStation themselves, their first party games, what you would think as their biggest franchises, like Horizon was much higher, 20 odd million versus um, like God of War and stuff like that. What our perception of their biggest franchise is not how the numbers play out from the leak. What I understand.
yeah, it's their most well-regarded franchises are not really. Yeah, you're right, not the biggest sellers.
And I think that's a time thing. I know Horizon's been on Steam for a very very long time. It's one of those that people play quite a bit, and I think God of War. I think one of those is that you probably would have played it on PlayStation. I think, whereas Horizon might have been that first dabble to give you a reason to play further Sony games and stuff.
Oh no, Alan, I'm talking. We probably don't have the information here, but I watched a couple of YouTube videos the about this leak, and it was about PlayStation hardware sales, so software sales on PlayStation hardware.
Mm.
And I think Joe has probably heard that as well. It's like Horizon is a much bigger seller than God of War in terms of numbers. Like it's like, hence why they're trying to make a whole movie around that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But again, I think that's because Horizon has been available on Steam for so long. I think God of War is slowly catching up. But again, it's a combination of a lot of Steam games people don't really buy them until they're on sale. So you kind of, and Horizon's been on sale many, many times, whereas the God of War one, because of its recency, it's less likely to have that sort of that discount on it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not just PC now; it's also PlayStation.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Like, yeah.
Oh.
So God of War, as a look, the God of War heritage on PlayStation it's beyond reproach. We know it's a valued kind of piece of IP, all of that sort of stuff. But when you look at the overall sales numbers, it's kind of like sitting above kind of God of War. And I do need to delve into a bit more detail with it, because at one point I thought they sold about 40 to 50 million God of War units.
Yeah.
So it's not small, but it's just that the reason I think Sony and PlayStation want to push Horizon is because of that number.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think you would need to go back to the numbers, but I think you'll probably find those bigger numbers are for the original God of War franchise on PS2 and 3. I think, yeah, not
yeah.
the better quality remake that came out on the
That's right.
PS4, which is
That's
it's been
right.
using the branding around.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, it's all of that. It's quite interesting. All of this is quite interesting. And then I think the thing for me that was most interesting is that Insomniac's roadmap up to 2030 was laid bare.
That's crazy.
And
That's a crazy
yeah,
timeline to leak.
I know it's mad, isn't it? I mean, um, what I did think looking at this is like obviously 2023 Spider-Man 2, we know that's accurate. So there's a gap year in 2024, which is to my mind, given how much they produced this generation so far, is no real surprise. But then in 2025, talking about a Venom spin-off, yeah, and then 2026 Wolverine, and then there's a 2 year gap, 2028 Spider-Man 3, and then I did wonder to myself, 2028 Spider-Man 3, is that a launch game for the new PlayStation, or potentially kind of a goodbye, like to the kind of existing console? And then obviously they got the next Ratchet and Clank in 2029, and then an X-Men game in 2030. Now, what I kind of thought at this point was X-Men game in 2030, Wolverine 2026, obviously Spider-Man in between. Are these guys now going to be moving into the X-Men game developer? And I actually personally think there's a high chance of that. Wolverine is an integral character in the X-Men universe. And I thought to myself, okay, so they're going to put Spider-Man to bed, and then beyond that, it's about the X-Men. And that's what I took from this. Plus, maybe PS6 in 2028, which is, there's been rumors around that already. So that's what I took from this kind of like roadmap. And then, obviously, we talked a little bit more. They they leaked something about kind of like Venom, so we know that's coming out, and obviously still lots of Spider-Man. So I thought, well, yeah, no showcase, but a massive leak, yeah. So we kind of know what's coming in the next kind of like I think six years or so. Okay.
This is probably it now, isn't it? Because the live service side was
It's totally,
dead.
yeah. It's totally I think thankfully in Insomniac it sounds as if they weren't part of this whole kind of like live service shenanigans. It sounded as if they were always gonna be, the Marvel game developer. This is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and
Plus, they were gonna keep Ratchet and Clank going.
then you have probably God of War that was going to stay as a non-live service game, and everything else would have gone live service, I would imagine.
yeah, which is God knows. But I mean, I think it's going to be a bit of a reversal for fortunes. I'm sure. Um, so that happened, massive leak, and then I kind of looked at the in 2024, and again, PlayStation being as silent as ever. I looked at it and I thought, well, what are the exclusive games or for PlayStation that we know about so far? And I don't know, there's about eight eight of them. Obviously, Last of Us Part Two remastered is going to release in January 19th, and that was announced with actually zero fanfare, which is quite typical of the way they do things now. Helldivers 2 in February, Pacific Drive in February, Final Fantasy Rebirth, third party exclusive in the February, Rise of the Ronin, March 22, Silent Hill 2 remake, Stellar Blade Concord. Yeah, which is not a bad list. And I kind of wondered to myself, I mean, you could have made a very good showcase out of some of this, if you know what I mean. So I kind of wondered. I thought to myself at times, right? Sony do have something to say, but they don't necessarily want to say it for whatever reason. Yeah, which is quite bizarre, you know. Um, to wrap up this whole kind of topic. Obviously, we know that Sony have got a stake in VR, PSVR 2. Kind of wondered, like, is PS Home ever going to come back? How does PS Stars fit into all of this? We know they're accessory heavy. They love their headsets. They bought all D. I think it's all called all Ds because they've got some sort of planar magnetic driver technology that Sony want to use. They've got the accessibility controller. They've got the PlayStation Portal. They're integrating Sony Pictures Core. They we know they're into their tournaments and esports. And as of well, when we last spoke about this, we talked to them having 12 open source live service games by 2026. And you know, is that still the case? And given that there is a job opening, is that the case? So guys, to wrap up, there's a lot of information, most of it, about the leaks. Now, let's assume there's a job opening. Jim's gone bye bye. Sayonara. What would you do? Al, I'll start with you. What would you do?
What would I do? I think, again, I think going back to your original point around the live service games, they've committed so much to it already. And it depends on which studios have actually been reshaped to do that. I would do something along the lines of actually bringing back some of their old IP that they've had on the sort of Sony PlayStation brand that they've had for decades, and they just died over time. But bringing back a few of those would be really good, and maybe using live service as the way to actually bring those back, and ideally actually follow. I would say, in order to make sure that they follow it correctly, they should follow the free-to-play method that Genshin and others do, and then the microtransactions that go along with it. Because that's and if that was a strategy to make the money, they need to do it properly along those lines.
You mean stuff like Killzone?
Yeah, Killzone, Resistance. Yeah, there's a few other ones that were kind of like heavily, massively multiplayer. Because that's the thing that's missing, I think, in the mobile space, is that all of these sort of gacha free-to-play games, they're mostly single-player experiences with a tiny bit of stuff that's in there, but not much PvP. Or things where you can kind of like work together on PvE kind of stuff. But I think Sony has the infrastructure, and they played and dabbled in that world, and I would say bring back some of those and fit that space when no one else really is probably where I would go. And then the rest of it, I don't know. They've brought the media, the sort of film stuff into the with core and other things into it. That's already fine. I would be interested to see what happens with the VR stuff, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of things shifting around with the recent CES stuff and augmented reality, transparent, kind of technologies and other things. So things are kind of shifting, and maybe would be working out what's the strategy with AI and Gen AI NPCs. So if does the infrastructure, do we need the PlayStations to have kit that can actually operate the AI models locally? I suspect there's a yes there somewhere, but or is it actually on the server basis? But there's stuff like that really that I would probably focus my efforts on.
Okay, some good points there. Jay, how about you?
I would build a strategy that probably quite similar to Nintendo, which is really build a multi-channel strategy around a bunch of characters, flesh out their stories, build the right movies, and really go deep on embedding those sort of characters and worlds to another level, almost like a Star Wars type of thing. But for each one of the characters, I would also significantly reduce the cost of them building their games because it's just got out of hand. The AI pieces probably plays into that. I would have more experimental games, smaller experimental games, lower cost, almost kind of what the indie scene has been doing for a while. That's been surviving, but with a bit more budget. Some of that could include, letting your customer base even choose from a bunch of pilot games that they go out and extend, and just to have that better two-way communication between your customer base versus this kind of secretive, we're so special, here's a release, and it's
Yeah,
almost taken a leaf out of Microsoft's book, but they haven't delivered. Microsoft, they've
yeah, but deliver.
yeah, they had their open communication, but they didn't deliver. Yeah, and have a real focus on fun.
That's a good one.
Because I think that's where Nintendo are just still magic.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I mean, over Christmas I've really been playing some older games that graphics aren't that good, but they're fun. And I think that's the problem with trying to create movie franchises and really just high budget things. Like you can lose the fun because you're just telling a story,
That's right. That's right.
and that's basically my
Yeah. You know what I think? I actually think there's a lot to like about what Sony PlayStation is doing, but it's so uncoherent and so all over the place that I'd really want them to try and bring everything together in a more coherent fashion. It's kind of like it's kind of like this. It's kind of they're doing well on the whole kind of TV and film thing on their IP as well as I think they could possibly do. But the way they release stuff is it's just so all over the place. It's kind of you're releasing a Gran Turismo film. Please basically also release some sort of massive patch for Gran Turismo and have some sort of kind of coherent, strategy to bring everything together. I mean, something along those lines to make it look as if you're thinking about what you're
Yeah,
doing.
they should do something
Right.
like if you went to the cinema to see it, you had a voucher to go get like a bit of a skin
Yeah.
for a car or something, like just something.
Just
Yeah.
something, yeah, something. It's just too much all over the place, and I I kind of think also. I mean, I don't think they're ever gonna be the Nintendo company who's about the fun factor. But who they are is really the storytelling company that kind of produce games like that. And I kind of feel they've kind of lost sight of that somewhat because they've been chasing this, this live service dream. And I think they're probably doing this already, but they're gonna need to rewind that decision. And I'm not saying have no live service, but maybe kind of somehow cherry pick a few of these titles and have, let's say, don't derail your own teams. Let them make the games they want to make, and let them make the games that you're best known for, and maybe either buy into or stand up some teams who specifically exist to make these live service games and have the right people to do that for you. Yeah. And I guess the last thing is like, what Jay, what you touched upon, the communication side of things. Um, they don't have any. There's no hard and fast rules that you have to communicate to us, but it would be good.
Yeah.
It would be good, and it would be, and I think part of it is because I strongly feel they've had nothing to communicate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've chosen the path of silence. But I think getting back to that, I mean, doing something along those lines, you know, would be good. Yeah. But it's a lack of coherent. It's just the PlayStation strategy at the moment. It's you got all the ingredients, but you have no recipe.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, that's what it feels like to me. You have all the ingredients, but you have no recipe, and you just keep chucking stuff out there, and hopefully you're hoping it sticks. Yeah, there is literally. It feels like there's minimal strategy. And the other thing I was thinking, there's one thing I will leave at is like, um, I think there's still loads of complaints about PS Plus Premium, and I think that largely the complaints are about the um, the retro stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Them getting out retro games. They don't have the history that Nintendo have, but they've got a pretty big history. Sony and PlayStation. So why the WTF? And why the fuck are you not celebrating these games, right? I mean, the whole premium. You could be putting a bit of effort to release or remaster whatever the hell you're gonna do. Get it onto PS Plus Premium, and then have a marketing strategy that where you really celebrate your heritage and your legacy. But it's none of that. It's just basically chuck some darts on on a dartboard, and hopefully it sticks. Yeah, and it's very incoherent, is what I feel about kind of PlayStation at the moment. And I think really that is all I have to say. And I think with that said, let's move on to the next topic. Right, guys, I think the next topic I want to talk about is really reflections on 2023. So I just want to give everybody, let's say, 10 minutes, 6 items tops, just to, get their thoughts on, last year, the year gone. So, Al, let's start with you.
Oh, there was kind of a lot, I think. Just in picking it a bit, I don't know. Maybe I'll start with the first one being probably Diablo 4 and it being a disappointment. I think that was probably quite the most harshest bit. Probably spent quite a bit of time playing some old classics as well, and I think Sniper Elite 5 at the beginning, so definitely played quite a bit of that and enjoyed that one a lot. And I think right towards the end, I guess during the Christmas period, I started back on World of Warcraft, Seasons of Discovery, and which has been really, really enjoyable. So I signed up to that again and started playing that kind of section, and stuff like that. And I don't know, it was one of those that I was still probably waiting for again because I never jumped into the new consoles this era. So I've still not got a PS5 or an Xbox or even a Switch, and even the VR2 wasn't something that has given me a good enough reason to get one yet. So it's one of those I might even just skipping the whole this whole generation at this point, because the Switch.
Yeah, sounds like you're gonna skip the gen.
Yeah,
right?
because Switch
Just stick
Switch
with
2 is on
PC.
its way. That's what it feels like anyway. And I don't know. Maybe I'll get like the sort of slim version of PS5 or something, whatever they announce, that sort of stuff. But maybe that's part of the predictions.
Well, but there's already a hardware refresh that happened in 2023, right? So it's not really that slim, but it's probably what you're going to get in the generation. But there's loads of games, yeah.
Yeah.
PS5 small, not slim, or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount that I've kind of jumped into really. Again, most of my year was again on the sort of mobile games, a lot of that kind of stuff. I think Honkai Star Rail started as well. I played a lot of that. Still do play that as well. And dabble on a few others, but I think now World of Warcraft has caught my attention again, and I'm back in it.
You poor person. You poor guy.
You druggy.
You
druggy.
Yeah. Mobile games, live service, subscription based, MMOs. Your life's over.
It's people like you that are ruining the games industry.
I don't know. I mean, I think World of Warcraft and the Season of Discoveries, I mean, they're tweaking the old formula, and in a good way. So like World of Warcraft Classic, when they released that, it was like just the original version. They kept it to what it was before, but I'd already experienced that, so it was pointless for me to go back in. Whereas this Season of Discovery stuff was actually the tweaks that it did just fundamentally changed some classes, and the fact that they're going to have sort of seasonal updates as it's kind of going through. Like we're getting the next major update in a couple of weeks now, and yeah, people are really looking forward to Phase 2, where they just move up a set of levels, set of new things to come through, and yeah, I'm enjoying it so far.
It's definitely was a nostalgia across the industry seems to be a big thing playing on, right? And you can see it with Fortnite as well. Some of the original maps have been coming into play, and it's had record numbers in terms of concurrent players again.
I think there is definitely that angle, and I think I just like the way that they've tweaked what they've done with World of Warcraft to make it a bit more on the sort of new side and fresh side, especially for some of the limitations on some of the classes. So yeah, it's been very enjoyable on that side. Yeah, so I think that's
anything on the hardware side that you want to speak on.
Not a huge amount, because I didn't do any sort of hardware refresh throughout the year. If anything, it's all more sort of the Gen AI kind of stuff that's been kind of slowly building up pace and continuing to gain pace. I mean, maybe on that side of things, really. I might have a hardware refresh at some point, but it feels like I'm close to I'm close to thinking of a refresh. So I'm keeping an eye on the sort of hardware stuff, but nothing has captured me enough to force me to kind of make that change. Even as much as Starfield tried to say that it used an excuse to make you to modernize your PC, it wasn't a good enough reason for me to go, for just that one game to refresh my system.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like there's going to be a bit of an AI push, even locally.
Oh yeah,
that's the way they seem to be going at the moment.
Well, I think that's probably the 24 prediction I'll have, is that. Well, I think it's happening to all the sort of mobile devices and everything else that are coming out. It's just having it closer to the end compute that you're going to have to be using. So, yeah, that will be quite a big thing, I think, over the next year or 2 years.
Cool. Okay, Jay, how about yourself? What's your reflections of the year just gone?
So for me, there have been so many game releases that my backlog has just grown exponentially. I mean, I'm just looking at a list of games here from last year, some of which I've recently bought because I bought some of them in the Christmas sales for the PlayStation 5 and for the Switch as well. But just to pluck a few out from last year. So we've got Super Mario Brothers Wonder. We've got The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, they're for me absolute must plays. They're the reasons why I got my Switch. I completed the first Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I'd done probably 60% of it and had a massive push at Christmas. And what a game! I can't wait to play Tears of the Kingdom. And from what I've heard, it smashes everything that was bad with the first game, and everything that was good takes it up another level. And I think it probably would have got Game of the Year if it wasn't for Baldur's Gate. On the PS5, I think Diablo was an exciting start, and I got to level 16, and I just kind of fell off it. I think more because of didn't want to invest too much time because the whole community was saying it's not that good. And I've probably spent the first half year playing too much Destiny, and I've made a big shift in the last half or last quarter, and I'm doing my backlog now. But other games that there's Spider-Man 2. I bought the original one and Miles Morales for Christmas. I can't wait to get to number 2. That's it's going to be a fantastic game. There was Final Fantasy 16, which I'm probably not even going to buy. Armored Core 6 on my list. That looks so cool, but I probably can't justify buying it at full price. So I'll wait for that to come down. I bought Resident Evil 4, haven't even turned it on, and I also bought Resident Evil 2 and 3, the remakes, which I haven't even started, but those were on sale. Cocoon looked really cool as a Switch game. I haven't bought that one yet. And I guess for me, the biggest thing I've probably shifted my gaming towards is fighting games. I bought Street Fighter 6. What a game, especially since 5 was a complete flop when it started. And I think 4 and 5 weren't that great when they came out, but they kind of reinvented themselves. But 6 straight off the bat, amazing graphics, amazing gameplay. Mortal Kombat 1, I didn't buy that because I didn't want to pay full price for that when you consider all of the DLC packs and season passes. I thought I'd wait for that on sale, but then as people were playing it, people have kind of fallen off it, saying it's a little bit stale. It probably needs a bit of a tune up, speed up, but that's a game on my list. But yeah, fighting games for me is a big thing. I even bought a levelless controller, which I've properly started playing over the last week, and it was a massive learning curve to get used to it. But I'm absolutely loving that. Just what other games were there? There were probably some games on the Xbox which I'm going to abandon the Xbox, but like Forza looks really cool. Yeah, they're probably the headline games for me from last year that I thought was pretty good. I mean, Jedi Survivor is another one actually that comes to mind. I haven't completed the first one, but again, that was highly rated. There were some more indie games, Sea of Stars, that look pretty good, but I probably won't get to that. Fire Emblem Engage, another one that looks pretty good. Octopath Traveler 2, which came out early in the year. I really like the first one. And there was a climbing game, and I think you pronounce it Jusant or something. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's only about £20-30, but it's like it's kind of like Journey. That PlayStation game called Journey.
Yeah.
Where it's just atmospheric and stylized, but it's third-person climbing. I'll definitely recommend checking it out. That's got a good review as well. But yeah, so as you can see, there's so many games that come out last year that I think are really really cool, and I'm just looking forward to just working my way through it this year. Destiny, I'm going to wait to see what happens with the final shape, but as far as I'm concerned right now, I've pulled the ejector seat and I'm out of that space at the moment. That's probably better off for it as well. Games for 2024, we're probably going to get on to the next, but I think for me that's a little bit more of a mystery. What's coming out? So yeah. And yourself?
Well, guys, before we move on to myself, I mean, anything to say about maybe some of the good or bad actors in the industry? Whether they're, development studios,
Yeah,
platform
that's
holders
another interesting point. I mean, last year was pretty brutal in terms of job cuts. I can't remember what number, more 10,000 job cuts across the whole industry, probably more.
We've had some
record
more
number
today, didn't we?
Yeah, to more. So
record number.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I think Sony, Microsoft, and all the third-party studios, Bungie, it seems to be they all scaled up after COVID, expecting much higher adoption of some of their games, and they've just overdone it. And probably with this AI push as well, they're probably thinking that they need to readjust how they how they develop games as well. So
I'm pretty certain it's the AI push, because we've seen it in various other things already, where it's the sort of even the media and movie and marketing and stuff like that as well. It's already been impacting across the board, the consultancies and everything as well. And yeah, the games industry, Jay, we kind of spoke about certain projects that we were potentially looking at that would have utilized something similar. Again, sort of Gen AI and gaming. And I think that's just where it's going to go. So I don't think they had much of a choice but to do what they did.
yeah, I think it's expected, but I think for some of them, it's the way they've done it.
Mm.
Some of them have been quite brutal in the way they've almost been lying, manipulating the media, um, that type of thing. So yeah, um, I think it's revealed who are the good actors and bad actors. I would say. I think Activision Blizzard is been one of those as well, and we've also had a lot of mergers, acquisitions going on as well, which is kind of further led to more job cuts, which is kind of expected in that sort of space. But it's been unfortunately scary times for developers, right?
Mm.
Scary times for everybody in technology,
Mm,
if you ask me.
exactly, and I think it's going to impact some of the games coming out in the next few years. But I think developers are going to play it safe. There's been
Well,
quite a few flops, particularly in the live service space, right? So
mhm. Yeah, where there's less money, there's also more risk adversity. So I think it's more likely to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that there's still other things kind of brewing as well, right? Even with the interest rates kind of improving and stabilizing, um, the things kicking off in Yemen and things like that is just causing that extra uncertainty. So again, they're just making that kind of strategic decision to make those cuts, and probably and I think that's what companies like Google did. They got rid of loads of people, but suddenly started hiring a lot more people in the AI space off the back of it.
Maybe they're just thinking of retooling,
Mm.
seeing which way the wind's blowing. That's interesting.
and Joe, for you in 2023, what was the kind of highlights?
Highlights. Like you guys, I kind of jumped into Diablo 4 and I jumped off fairly rapidly. But then I jumped off fairly rapidly and started playing my old kind of light action RPGs. So it doesn't really say a lot about the game if you see what I mean. Um, I mean, it was meant to be one of the best years for gaming. Um, I must say I didn't get into a lot. I mean, like some of yourselves. I mean, I've got Final Fantasy, the new Final Fantasy. I haven't really kind of started. Um, and I found myself also kind of going back to say the older games which didn't have my back catalog, and just deciding to buy the complete edition.
Mm.
So, Jay, when you talked about Mortal Kombat 1, kind of waiting for, let's say, DLCs and the twinks and all that sort of thing, there's lots of games out there right now whereby they call it the ultimate edition or the complete edition, and they give you all the DLCs and the twinks and whatever else. So I ended up getting the last Mortal Kombat like that for next to relatively nothing
Well, I've
price.
got that as
Did the
well.
same with
11
yeah,
Ultimate. Yeah,
that's
I played
right.
it for like 5 minutes.
And that yeah, but and the story of that actually kind of like there's a bit of continuity between that and the new game. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's worth playing from that perspective. And even like with Tekken 7, I kind of bought that because I wanted to play Tekken 8 at some point. And I bought the complete edition there, which has Tekken bowling as well. Which is one of the better kind of, like mini games they kind of added, certainly my favorite. Um, so I find myself just doing things like that, and doing what I'm doing, in terms of, dabbling games, but just having less and less time for it. And that's what I found. Um, There's certainly a lot of standout games, and I still want to get my hands on, Armored Core when the time's right. I'm just waiting for it to come down and get it at the right price. But that is probably something I will play, but purely from a nostalgia standpoint, because you know that's what I was doing on my kind of PS2, PS1,
Mm.
all that sort of thing.
It's amazing the power of nostalgia, isn't it? I mean, even with Tekken as well. It's just
Yeah, it's so powerful. And apparently there's a jukebox, and even on 7 there's a jukebox with all the old tunes that I didn't even know about.
yeah, that's an 8
Yeah,
as well. Yeah,
yeah. It's they've got that feature set in there, so that's kind of interesting.
I've just before we joined, I was playing around with 8, and it's got amazing reviews. The graphics are insane. It is like Unreal Engine 5. Is it 5 in the latest one? Yeah, 5, 4,
It's
5.
5.
Sorry,
It's
5.
5. Mm.
HDR, fast loading, stunning, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's a fighter that's actually hasn't come out on the last generation of consoles. It's only for this gen plus PC. I don't think it's even on Switch, is it?
No,
I could
Probably.
be
no,
wrong.
no.
Yeah, probably
It's
not.
no, it's not. It's just proper next gen only. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so just games wise, I mean, that's that's what I've kind of like been thinking on, and I've just kind of retooled or restocked my back catalogue with things that I've missed out on in the past, like the Surge 2, which I've heard was really good. I never really kind of like played it. It's a Souls-like game, and then there was also what was it? I can't believe I've actually forgotten the name of it. How dumb. Dishonored.
That's
Yeah.
the one.
I
Yeah, yeah,
decided to go back
yeah.
and buy the first Dishonored for the PlayStation because my previous version was only on PS3, which I've packed away, and I just wanted to play it again. And then like when that's done, I'll probably do the same with Prey. But there's a expansion that I haven't played on it. I think what's it called? It's called Moon Crash, which is meant to be excellent. So I've just been doing stuff like that really.
Just wandering through whatever game
Yeah,
you feel like
yeah, very,
playing. Yeah.
yeah, and being very nostalgic as well.
It's interesting you
Doing
both
stuff like that.
aren't really being pulled by some of the big games from last year. Diablo seems to be the only game that's come out last year that kind
Yeah,
of pulled.
I think Diablo was such a disappointment that kind of like put me off everything else. I mean, I will play Spider-Man 2, and I have got like say the latest Modern Warfare.
Oh,
Yeah,
you bought that one, did you? Okay. No,
yeah, I've got that. I'm basically gonna like give that a shot. But that's a good point. I didn't feel pulled by anything new, if you know what I mean. I mean, Tekken 8 Tekken 8 possibly.
you're not interested in playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom?
That means owning a different console, which I just
Would
simply don't have time for.
yeah.
I mean, that's what the problem is. It's really,
And if
isn't
the
it?
Switch 2 is backward compatible because there's such a big
Mm.
catalog on the first Switch, would you then?
I I'm pretty I like the idea of getting a Switch 2. So I'm probably heavily likely for a Switch 2, and like you mentioned, Jay, the Zelda back catalog for sure, and there's just so many games on there that it would be quite interesting to just have and play around with.
I think me would be hugely unlikely. I just don't think I've got the time to kind of like I've owned Nintendo consoles, but to have another console that I'm not going to use, it's a total waste of time.
The only
Yeah, I'm not even going to do
the
it.
only thing that might sway me away from getting a Switch 2 is if Valve release another Steam Deck, which they may do a refresh quite soon because the Steam Deck's now a year and a bit, maybe 2 years old, maybe longer.
Didn't they just come out with the better screen?
The OLED,
OLED, yeah. But
yeah.
the hardware was the same though, yeah.
The hardware is a bit more efficient,
Oh, is it? Okay.
and it was clocked slightly higher, and they gave it a bit quicker memory as well. So there's some performance gains to be had with it. But I think Steam had gone on record to say, right, they're not releasing Steam Deck 2 anytime soon, simply because the technology for what they have in mind for Steam Deck 2 doesn't exist yet. So I think in effect they're waiting for the chip manufacturers to catch up to their own vision
Interesting.
of how they see things working. Because I think right now, if you wanted a handheld PC, you would just get a Steam Deck.
Or the Asus one that seems to be quite competitive as well.
I wouldn't even bother. They're all running Windows. That's the problem. Windows is not a mobile kind of operating system. It's not. They're not running kind of like Windows Mobile or anything like that. They're literally running Windows.
Even the Steam Deck.
Steam Deck's running
It's got
Linux,
its own,
Yeah,
It's
okay,
got its
so
own
that's,
OS, yeah.
yeah, okay, so that's
and they're running Steam OS, which is and it's effectively Linux variant with a translation layer. That's doing an amazing job. Whatever they're doing with it, it's doing an amazing job. And I think it's based on this thing called Wine or something, which allows you to play like PC or Windows games on Linux. And I just took that, developed it further. It's going to be great for the Linux distros and the people, the maniacs who actually do kind of like a game on Linux, right? But they're really pushing that forward, and they're also kind of cutting the umbilical cord of kind of Microsoft, doing their own thing because they don't want to be locked into them.
Yeah, I was just checking the date on it. It was Feb 25th, 2022.
Yeah.
So it's almost coming up to 2 years on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I don't think they can come out with anything too soon, if you ask me. But anyway, look, that's game aside, yeah. So but I think, I mean, my own reflections outside of games is that I think basically the games industry is probably coming up to a bit of an inflection point where the actual money it takes to make games versus what they can sell it for, you know, is it's coming to a very unhealthy state, really.
the price is going to go up. They're going to creep to £100 soon.
Yeah, and even if you you based it purely on the numbers and the trending and inflation, my guess is it actually wouldn't look that unfair. If you know what I mean. If you just did that over time, right, and you looked at inflation and how you know and mapped that against the price of games, it wouldn't look unfair. And then you look at how much money a game, a AAA game, let's call it that, but even indie these days, right, takes to kind of like bring up. And again, it probably wouldn't look unfair, but it's just turning into a very expensive,
Hobby.
like hobby, at the moment.
Well, I think we as gamers need to buy less games. I mean, how many games do we all buy and then they just get sat in the backlog and you don't actually play it? It's just
Well, yeah, that's all about the time factor,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but there's just too much choice there, and games isn't really like consuming, music or movies or TV. I mean, you can consume music just walking down the street, walking your dog. You can consume a movie. You can just have it on in the background while you're doing your bloody ironing, for God's sake, and all that sort of stuff. You cannot do that with a game because there's a mental investment you need to make with it.
Very interactive.
So
yeah.
it's a very different sort of medium to the rest of these guys. And I think the other thing I would say is that first of all, thank God Microsoft closed the Activision deal, but it just goes to show. I mean, Microsoft could buy anybody they want to based off of this, and yeah, Sony don't have any kind of plan at all. I'll change my tune. They've got no plan.
Yeah, they're in a bit of a turmoil, and I think you're right. 2023, just to put a bow on it, it was definitely an inflection point. We probably had a pent up games post COVID that all released, and then we're having a big pivot in terms of game costs, company mergers, lack of strategy, lack of strategy from Sony, or putting their eggs in the wrong place with the live service, and then Microsoft probably taking on too much more than they can chew and not delivering on their games. And probably, I think Nintendo might actually be the surprise winner in the next kind of cycle, because if their console can power more third-party games, Xbox does a multi-platform cloud service, and then they've got their first party, with a strong online, maybe they could eat up even more share. So it'd be interesting to see what's happening in 2024, which is probably a good segue into the other part of your question.
Yeah, I think so. I think, look, with that said, let's kind of like move out of 2023. Okay, guys, so the next topic we want to speak on is basically 2024, and more precisely, what our predictions after 2024. And I think, to add a little bit of fun to this, I think, we'll try and record what our predictions are. And we're trying to, if we're still doing this in a year's time, we'll come back to this and just see, how close we were to the truth, or, are we just in the realms of kind of science fiction? So I think for this one, I'll start with you, Jay.
So it's a funny place to have predictions because they've all been very more hush than they normally are going into next year, and there haven't been that many leaks. So I'll do my best. So I think the Switch 2 will definitely come out this year. I think it will come out with a Mario Kart as a launch title, and possibly a Mario 3D title as well. I think Bungie are going to flop with their final shape, and they're going to lose all credibility, and they'll get disbanded. Maybe not this year, but they'll head down that path.
Brutal.
Yep. I think PlayStation will come out with a surprise live service game this year. I don't know what genre it'll be in, but I think they will come out with one. I think Microsoft will flop with mediocre games coming out this year. 7, 8 out of 10s. And I think with that will come Phil Spencer losing his job. I think just my final two predictions. I think the new Metal Gear Solid will be quite good and will surprise everybody. And my final prediction is that I will go to a fighting game competition and win one gold medal.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one of those is actually more far fetched. That your win of you winning a gold medal in esports or something else. But okay, that's your 6. Well done. Al, let's go to you.
Yeah, so I agree on the Switch 2 one. I think that will definitely come out this year. It seems the right sort of time for it. And I'd be definitely on board for getting one. So definitely the sort of airing towards a Switch 2 coming out. I'm sensing if we've not already had it as well, there's going to be Gen AI NPCs more available in games. So we're already seeing some mods already starting to come about. So it's getting very close. So I reckon we'll get some proper sort of NPCs with kind of interactive chat in some kind of game in 24. You can argue there's some that are already there. Ones that have actually been created, games that have been created with Gen AI in some way, or sort of LLM models. So a game or a game engine of some sort that's created from something purely from an AI perspective, because I think things like Steam have started to say that they're making available games that can be generated with some form of Gen AI as well on their market. So I think that's opening up the floodgates for people to utilize the tools and to make that work. So probably more Gen AI created games.
Is that your second one, Al?
I've kind of did two in one, I guess, that one. So that's the one is the NPCs, and then the second one is the game engine and environment and other things as part of that. So you can argue that's 2 or 3, whatever you want to call it.
we'll say 2.
What else am I going to predict? I would like Nintendo to move further into the online space, but I don't know if it's the year.
Is that a prediction? Is that a prediction?
Is there a prediction for 24? Are they going to do it in 24? I hope they do. So maybe I'll go for that prediction. Maybe there'll be more sort of online content coming from Nintendo in 24. I'm wondering, is there any other ones? With the sort of live service model that Sony was kind of going for, I would hope quite a similar one to Jay, a live service game of some sort coming from them. I'm hoping they use the free-to-play model, and they follow the likes of Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, and take advantage of what they've been generating out of that, because I think I'm hoping that they're keeping an eye on what's going on in that space, because the models that they're creating it's generating lots and lots of revenue. Is it really generating lots and lots of profit? Maybe, probably. Really depends on how much it costs for them to make it, and I suspect they're splurging a lot on marketing, but I'm hoping Sony moves into that kind of space. And then one final one.
Any predictions for PC hardware?
PC hardware? Oh, I'm hoping they'll have some kind of... I'm sure they'll be the first GPU chip that also has some level of, I guess, processing power for sort of AI models, so that, again, localized Gen AI kind of like NPCs will and things like that will be a lot easier. So I reckon the first flavor of that will be coming really late 24. So,
I think that's coming.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I think they've
they've already got the AP, APUs. Yeah. I mean, they're talking about Copilot.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's not much of a
definitely
prediction. I mean, that feels like it's pretty much going to happen.
Yeah, but in what manner? I'd be interested to see what Nintendo actually do go down the kind of like. I mean, so how online is online, because they've got a digital store, but would you expect them to do like more in the way of kind of live service themselves, or
Yeah, I'm
anything along
hoping
those
they
lines?
do and take advantage of their IP, because I don't know if you guys have seen this game called Pal World.
Yep.
Yeah,
That has
Blowing
been
up.
causing all sorts of things blowing up, right? But it's something that Nintendo should have done a long time ago with their IP. And it just shows what you can do if you were to take advantage of it.
it's Pokemon with guns.
Yeah, that's...
in a survival game
It's
mold, isn't it? Or
it's more
something
survival than
ridiculous like that.
Pokemon, but I think with the Pokemon, forget the gameplay and not innovating here. They've just had really disgusting performance of the software. And the Switch has some games that perform really well. I mean, the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom is a huge open world, and they can't even do a basic non-open world game and get it to run at.
It's still sold.
And
I hear.
yeah, but I think that people
Yeah, it's still sold a ton.
they've burnt a lot of, because all the people that are much older that still would play Pokemon. I think they've burnt that audience. Not everybody, and it will still sell well, but they're spooning out millions of sales. I think there's only so long you can do that. But
Yeah, and this is why I've kind of made that online Nintendo prediction, right? They've not... I'm hoping Pal World will be enough to push them over the edge. To either... I mean, probably there's going to be a lawsuit against them anyway for some kind of,
Plagiarized or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's probably something that will happen. But they've missed. They had such a great success with Pokemon Go. I am just surprised they haven't pushed it much further in terms of that model.
I just don't know if it was actually Nintendo themselves or someone.
Oh,
else
no, someone took the
developed
IP and kind of did it on their behalf, but they would have got massive amounts of royalties from it.
Yeah, but that just tells me they haven't got much necessarily motivation to do it. They like the lane they're swimming in, if you know what I mean. So, but it's just fair enough. They're doing extremely well out of it. You might argue they've been the winners in this, console generation for at least 2 years. Or they won the last generation, but no one talks about them like that. Okay, that's interesting, Al. That's interesting. I guess I should have do my predictions now. So, first prediction is Sony's going to walk back their live service strategy. They'll have some live service, but it's not going to be like this 12 game live service. Behemoth they're talking about. Be one or two, and they're going to get back to basically doing what they're good at. To be honest, but it's going to take them a while. I wonder if you're even going to see any good games from them next year. I don't know, but I'm not even I won't include that. I'll just say they'll walk back their live service. We'll find out that leak that Microsoft recently had about the whole Adorably digital leak that came out about Microsoft is actually all real. Slide for slide, it's all real. Yeah, no doubt about that. I actually do think, and this is going to be my third one, I do think that Phil Spencer is going to get the sack. Yeah, because every time I hear Satya Nadella speak about Xbox, he seems to completely contradict Phil. And I can't believe, there's something there, right? So, yeah, I'd agree that with the Switch 2 coming out, and I think it's going to be fully backwards compatible. So it'll be a new thing for Nintendo.
You think so? You're confident about that?
I think I am.
Yeah.
I just think I am. I just think everything points to, I just can't see them not.
They'll.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Unless they massively change their engine and their kind of system on it, I'd imagine it would be backward compatible. So I can't imagine they would have changed it massively.
It's just too much of a risk not to be, really. I think it's more to do them wanting to bring over their fan base with them. Yeah. So what's the fifth one? The fifth one. Yeah, Sony are not going to release much in the way of great games, but they're going to definitely buy somebody big.
Ooh.
They're going to they're going to go the way of Microsoft, is what I'm just telling you, saying. Microsoft, we're not going to release any good games. We'll just buy somebody, because that's just kind of like a state we're in.
Square Enix or something like that. I don't think they need to, because people will just buy that on the PlayStation anyway.
Yeah, I know. I think it'll be somebody. Typically, wouldn't be their norm. It might be just somebody that has a suite of games.
I reckon it'd be something like Ubisoft when they get really cheap, because they're going to get desperate.
Yeah, not sure about Ubisoft, but I think it would be somebody of that ilk. Yeah, because I just think this live service situation they put themselves in is probably put them back 2 to 3 years.
Oh, I think more than that.
Yeah, that's my suspicion. Yeah, so that's my fifth one, and the last one. So I've got nothing to say about PC hardware. I think that's just going to pretty much follow the regular, cadence.
You're going to come second in the fighting tournament after me.
I doubt it. My reactions are so poor. There's literally no way that could even happen.
Are we going to see a return of E3 in some form?
No,
different
that's
one?
dead.
I know it's dead.
That's dead.
But you think someone else is going to take up the mantle?
Jeff Keighley is.
Jeff Keighley becomes the head of Xbox.
Yeah.
Go for something really wild.
I'm going to predict more doom and gloom. That's what I was going to. There's going to be more doom and gloom for the games industry.
Go on, go for it.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say that. Sorry, gamers, but we're all screwed. Yeah. I just can't see it going any other way, because it's just too bloody expensive, and if they're not thinking about it already, I'd be surprised if platform holders, big publishers and studios aren't trying to work out how to make some of these games kind of less expensive to develop, or the other way is work out how they can make more with the actual assets they've got at their disposal. Could be kind of one of the two things. This is not going to be one of my predictions, but I think the whole AI thing, I don't see it I don't really see it as a silver bullet, because I think before it gains any sort of traction, right, you're going to see basically laws come in to stop all of that anyway. Yeah, and really, this should be a prediction actually, but the reality is, right, why are people talking about AI doing jobs that are quite creative and the kind of jobs that we want to do? I mean, I fucking don't get that, right? It's like we're kind of championing AI. Yeah, let's have it, do art, write, do music. Those are all the bloody jobs we want to do.
Exactly,
It's like bloody ironing clothes and cleaning kind of floors we don't want to do, or collecting rubbish. Just do something for
I
that.
think that stuff will come too. The robots are slowly coming as well. But I also think that then there's going to be all this other stuff that actually there's someone still going to oversee the creation of these the things, right? You still need someone to come up with the original idea.
Yeah, I'm more amenable to them having AI tools for the creators. Them basically, let's say, eliminating the creators. And maybe you train the kind of AI to behave like the said creator. And the said AI gets tied to that creator, and you get over maybe another hurdle like that.
Yeah.
But I just hate the idea of some AI just saying, okay, well, we'll do the art for a game, or we'll do the music for a game, and it's like those are the jobs you want to keep. Dumbass, I mean, what are we talking about here? So, do something with AI that's that doesn't basically put our creators out of work, and get him to do some mundane stuff like do my accounts or something. I don't know.
I mean,
something along those lines.
That's the thing. I don't think it will put. There'll be some tasks which are just so manual and menial that it will automate. There's still going to have to be someone that oversees it, like to make sure that it's actually doing the correct thing. And I still think there'll be a creative side to it, but it's more being creative on how to utilize these various Gen AI tools.
I don't think that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
I think, look, there'll be some suit that says, look, he's, they're going to have no instincts in terms of what's being produced, right? And effectively, for any kind of organization, it's really the people that cost the most money. Because you have to pay for insurance, buildings, infrastructure, all of that sort of thing.
Benefits, pension, all those sort of things.
You name it, right? So that's not the way it's going to go. And obviously, if you're in this area that you've got talent or skill in a specific area that not anybody has, it stands to reason you're going to get paid more. You're going to be worth more. So if they're going to replace you, they're going to replace you. And but who's going to mark the work after that? After replaced, the project manager. You think a milestone's going to do it? No, that's not going to happen. So, but anyway, that's not even a prediction. But maybe it should be. Maybe we should have a segment on AI at some point. Yeah. But that's my predictions. That's my 6. So look, as I said, it would be fun. Maybe at the end of this year to kind of or the start of next year to see how accurate we were, and maybe we'll bring up the whole kind of Gen AI thing, because obviously this has an impact, quite a wide-reaching impact on not only games but technology and kind of like jobs in general and kind of life in general. So it'll be an interesting thing to do. I think with that said, I think it's really time to say our goodbyes. Okay, guys, it's come to that time of the night, all day, where we kind of have to say our goodbyes. But before we do that, I just want to ask, what tech and gaming things have you been doing? So, Al, let's start with you, actually.
Yeah, I've probably already mentioned it throughout this kind of whole podcast.
Yeah,
as well.
MMOs.
Back into World of Warcraft. having a lot of fun, actually. I've created 5 characters already. So, and the good thing is that it's just because the level cap is so low, you can actually maintain multiple characters quite easily. So, it's pretty good fun. Enjoying that. Enjoying the sort of raiding aspects and the new features within there. So that's what I've really been up to. Move on to Jay. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I've gone balls deep into fighting games. This is a bit of a fighting game renaissance happening at the moment. So I've just bought Grand Blue Fantasy Rising, which is a relaunch of Grand Blue with better graphics, cross-play, and rollback netcode. And since I've had that, I've had to hardwire the PlayStation into the router. So I'm just I don't know what it is. Online play, snappy rollback. It just feels like someone's sitting next to you. It's that smooth, and you just play quick 2 minutes mind games with someone, and then you can have another rematch, and then they go off, and that's and then I've just as I said, I've just got Tekken 8, and I'll be playing that probably for years to come. That looks like it's a fully packaged, game. They've spent their time. I think it must have been ready before, and they saw Street Fighter 6 landed well last year. Mortal Kombat 1 reasonably well, and they just waited until to now
Yeah,
and added more and more features. It's just even the reviews online, even the guys on Eurogamer that do the tech analysis as
Digital
well.
Foundry, yeah.
Digital Foundry as well. Saying it in terms of Unreal Engine, it's really really solid. So yeah, fighting games as long as I can, do it. I've even this someone at work who's into fighting games and levelers controllers. He sent me this video of how to. It's actually for learning how to piano, but all these finger exercises. While I still got my mobility, I'm going to see where I can get to. I'm actually going to try and enter a competition.
but
Given that I
you
also
might
do
as well
the
do
martial
something,
arts as well.
real martial arts, right?
Real
It's
martial
like-
arts. Yeah. So I do kickboxing and Brazilian jiu-jitsu anyway. So this is like my, it's all kind of interlinked. So yeah, that'll keep me busy. And Joe?
Yeah, for me, got a whole. Funny, I've got some older fighting games that I want to get through. So obviously, I'm still trying to get through Tekken 7. So I'm almost done with that, to be honest. And then once that happens, then Tekken 8, and then for Mortal Kombat, I've got the complete or ultimate version of the last one, 11. And once that's done, I want to try Mortal Kombat 1. I don't know if I'm going to try Street Fighter. I've got to be honest, because I've got quite a few versions of Street Fighter. Yeah, certainly got the last version of Street Fighter also, but I might pass on that for a while until I get a bit more time. On PC, I don't know where to begin with that, to be honest. 'Cause I mean, I keep thinking I want to basically get back to Cyberpunk, but then I also want to finish some of the Wolfenstein games. I do think at some point I'm going to wait until Starfield gets super cheap, and I might try it,
Yeah.
and I'm possibly going to hate it. But I just want to kind of like sample it. Um, Other than that, not much else. I'm thinking of basically messing around in some of the retro games that I have as well. I haven't done that in a while, so I think that'll be what I will do next. Real technology wise, year started. We're snowflaking along really where I am, so I'm just doing that. Getting along with that, and really the latest bit of consumer technology I bought is I bought my partner. She's got a new MacBook Air. I think it's an
Nice.
M2 or something. So yeah, it's a beautiful product. And she actually asked me something quite stupid. Do you want to share this computer? Right? And I said to her, it's called a personal computer. So no, I didn't think that was a good idea. And her idea of sharing would probably be quite different to mine, if you know what I mean. So, it's a beautiful product. It's a new MacBook Air. Beautiful product. Quick, snappy, robustly built. So I'm going to probably be tempted by that. I mean, I need a replacement at some point. So, but really, that's me. That's what I'm messing around with. At the start of the year. And I think with that said, I think we should just say our goodbyes.
Okay, it's goodbye from me, Al.
And it's goodbye for me, Jay.
And it's goodbye from me, Joel. And whatever you're doing, please like, subscribe, and comment, and have a stellar day.